Rejection. That single word has the power to crush egos, shatter confidence, and send even the strongest of men into a spiral of self-doubt. But here's the truth most people never tell you. Rejection is not the end. It is, in fact, the very beginning. It is the doorway to transformation, the wake-up call that forces you to confront who you are and who you are becoming. Think about it. The moment a woman rejects you, what happens? Your mind starts racing with questions. Was I not good enough? Did I say something wrong? What does she see in that other guy that she doesn't see in me? That discomfort you feel, that sting in your chest, that's not pain. It's a sign of growth, trying to break through. Because if you let it, rejection has the power to make you better than you've ever been. Most men get rejection all wrong. They take it as a personal attack, an insult to their worth. They let it define them, allowing that single moment to determine how they see themselves. But the men who truly rise in life, whether in relationships, business, or personal success, are the ones who use rejection as fuel. They understand that when one door closes, it's not because they weren't enough, it's because they have work to do. Let's break this down. Why does rejection hurt so much? Because it challenges your ego. It forces you to look in the mirror and see yourself exactly as you are, without the filters, without the illusions. And that can be uncomfortable. But discomfort is where all growth happens. When you lift weights, your muscles tear and rebuild stronger. When you study a difficult subject, your brain literally rewires itself to understand it better. And when you face rejection, your emotional resilience is being tested and strengthened, if you allow it. Now let's shift the perspective. Imagine for a second that rejection isn't a failure, but an opportunity. What if, instead of seeing it as a sign that you're not good enough, you saw it as a sign that you're on the verge of leveling up? Because that's exactly what it is. When a woman says no to you, it's not a condemnation, it's a reflection. It's reflecting back to you something you might not be seeing about yourself. Maybe you're not showing up as your best self. Maybe you're coming off as needy, insecure, or unsure of what you want. Or maybe, just maybe, she's not even the right person for you in the first place. And this rejection is life's way of pushing you in a better direction. Think about some of the most successful, powerful, and magnetic men in history. Do you think they never faced rejection? Of course they did. But what separates them from the average guy is how they responded to it. They took every rejection as a lesson. They didn't shrink, they expanded. They used it as an opportunity to refine themselves, to develop their confidence, their skills, their mindset. And as they did that, the very same people who once ignored them suddenly started paying attention. Because here's a universal truth. People are attracted to those who grow, evolve, and refuse to stay the same. The version of you that got rejected is not the version of you that will ultimately win. If you embrace rejection as the beginning of your journey, not the end, you set yourself up for a transformation that others cannot ignore. But here's where most men go wrong. They take rejection and instead of using it to level up, they sink into bitterness. They start blaming women, society, or circumstances. They convince themselves that she just didn't see their value, instead of asking the real question, how can I become a man who naturally commands respect, admiration, and attraction? The moment you shift your mindset from, I got rejected, to, I just got handed an opportunity to become better, everything changes. You stop seeing rejection as a loss and start seeing it as a training ground. Every no you hear becomes a stepping stone toward the version of yourself that no one can say no to. And let's get one thing straight. This isn't about changing yourself just to get a woman to like you. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need external validation to know his worth. It's about stepping into your power, knowing that the right people, whether it's women, business partners, or friends, will naturally gravitate toward you when you operate from a place of confidence and self-mastery. So the next time you face rejection, don't run from it. Sit with it, analyze it, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Maybe it's telling you that you need to work on your emotional intelligence. Maybe it's signaling that you should focus more on your purpose, your passions, your physical health, or your mindset. Or maybe it's simply reminding you that your worth has never been dependent on someone else's validation in the first place. When you see rejection for what it really is, an invitation to step up, not a punishment, you take control of your own story, and when you do that, everything else in your life starts to fall into place. Let's talk about energy. Specifically, the energy you bring into your interactions with women. Because whether you realize it or not, women pick up on energy more than anything else. They don't respond to words, looks, or even accomplishments as much as they respond to the feeling they get when they're around you. And this is where most men go wrong. When they face rejection, they think the answer is to double down on seeking validation. They text more, they try harder. They attempt to prove their worth, believing that if they can just say the right thing or do the right thing, she'll change her mind. But what they fail to understand is this: women are not drawn to effort. They're drawn to presence. And presence comes from growth, not desperation. When you operate from a place of desperation, it repels. It doesn't matter how good you look, how much money you have, or how well you dress. If your energy screams, "I need you to like me," she's already lost interest. Desperation is a sign that you're putting her on a pedestal, that her opinion of you matters more than your opinion of yourself. And that right there is the biggest turnoff. Now contrast that with a man who is focused on growth. He doesn't chase validation because he understands that his value isn't tied to whether or not a woman chooses him. He is too busy working on himself, too immersed in his mission, too engaged in his own development to be emotionally dependent on her reaction. And that is exactly why he becomes attractive. Because here's something most men don't realize. When a woman rejects you, it's not just about you. It's about the version of you she sees in that moment. And if that version of you is needy, insecure, or unsure of himself, she will walk away without hesitation. But when a man takes rejection and channels it into growth, when he uses that experience to sharpen himself, something interesting happens. He starts carrying himself differently. His energy shifts. He becomes more centered, more confident, more focused on his purpose. And women can feel that shift before he even says a word. See, women don't consciously think, "Oh, he's improved himself, now I'm interested." It's deeper than that. It's instinctual. It's the difference between a man who radiates abundance and a man who operates from lack. A man who has grown doesn't need to prove anything. He walks into a room and commands attention, not because he's trying to, but because he's aligned with himself. He doesn't chase, he doesn't over-explain, and he doesn't beg for approval. And because of that, people, especially women, are naturally drawn to him. Now, let's talk about the women who rejected you before. Why do some of them suddenly show interest again after a while? Did they wake up one day and realize they made a mistake? Not exactly. What really happened is that you changed. Maybe you hit the gym, started focusing on your goals, or developed a sense of purpose that you didn't have before. Maybe you stopped waiting for external validation and started building a life that excites you, whether she's in it or not. And because of that shift, she starts seeing you differently. She might not even be able to explain why. She just feels something different in your presence. Maybe she runs into you at an event and notices that your energy is calm, collected, and self-assured. Maybe she sees you on social media, thriving, living your best life, completely unfazed by her absence. That's when curiosity kicks in, because women don't want a man who needs them. They want a man who chooses them from a place of strength, not desperation. And when you embody that, everything changes. But here's where most men fail. Instead of embracing growth, they wait. They wait for the woman to come back. They go to the gym, work on themselves, start reading books. But deep down, it's all just a strategy to win her over. And guess what? That energy is still desperate, because true growth isn't about getting her back. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need her back. When you genuinely focus on your own evolution, you stop caring about whether she returns or not. And ironically, that's when she's most likely to take notice. Because now, you're no longer that guy who was begging for a chance. You've become someone who is too focused on his journey to worry about the past, and that's the key. Women are drawn to a man who is constantly evolving, a man who is in motion, a man who is too engaged in his own mission to be emotionally dependent on whether she says yes or no. Because when you grow, your energy shifts, and when your energy shifts, everything around you follows. Let's get something straight. Your value as a man has never been, and will never be determined by whether or not a woman chooses you. Yet this is the trap most men fall into. They tie their sense of self-worth to the approval of a woman, as if her decision to accept or reject them is the ultimate validation of their existence. This mindset is dangerous. It makes you weak, reactive, and emotionally dependent on factors outside of your control. And when your sense of worth depends on someone else's approval, you put yourself in a powerless position. The moment you need her to validate you, you give her control over how you feel about yourself. And that, more than anything, kills attraction. Think about it. When a woman rejects you, how do you respond? If you feel crushed, defeated, or like you've lost something essential, it means you were placing too much importance on her validation in the first place. You weren't just interested in her, you were seeking permission to feel valuable through her acceptance, and that is exactly why she rejected you. Women are instinctively repelled by men who need them to feel complete. It's not conscious, but it's deeply ingrained in their psychology. The moment a woman senses that you are seeking her approval to feel like a man, she loses respect for you. Not because she's cruel, but because she is biologically wired to be attracted to strength, independence, and self-assurance. Now, let's flip the script. Imagine you operate from a completely different mindset, one where your value is rooted in something deeper than external validation. Imagine being a man who knows his worth, who is so internally secure that whether a woman says yes or no to him, it doesn't shake his foundation. That kind of energy is rare, and that's exactly why it's attractive. The problem is that most men are conditioned to believe that their worth is something they must prove rather than something they already possess. From childhood, we are taught that success in relationships is about impressing, winning over, and convincing someone else to see our value. But that approach is flawed. The moment you try to prove your worth, you are already communicating that you doubt it. A truly confident man never seeks validation. He operates from the belief that he is already enough. And because of that, people naturally respect and admire him. Now let's bring this back to why women come back after rejecting you. It's not because they suddenly realized your value, it's because you did. When a woman first rejected you, maybe you took it personally, maybe you questioned yourself, but the men who win in the long run are the ones who take that rejection and use it as a catalyst to develop themselves, not as an excuse to doubt themselves. And here's the key. When you stop seeking validation, you change the way you move. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop feeling the need to be liked. You stop chasing. Instead, you focus on your mission, your growth, your own sense of fulfillment. And paradoxically, that's when women become drawn to you. Why? Because your energy is different. When you no longer seek approval, you project self-sufficiency. You become the kind of man who is chosen rather than the kind of man who is chasing. And the moment a woman senses that shift in you, her perception of you changes. But let's be clear. This isn't about playing games or pretending to be detached. It's about genuinely cultivating an unshakable foundation of self-worth. When you know that your value is not dependent on a woman's decision, you free yourself from emotional highs and lows based on external validation. Think about the men who are naturally attractive to women. Are they the ones constantly seeking reassurance? Or are they the ones who seem to move through life with an effortless confidence, a quiet certainty that they are enough, regardless of who does or doesn't recognize it? That's the man you must become. The man whose value is independent of external validation. The man who doesn't crumble when he hears no because he understands that a woman's response does not define his worth. The man who is so focused on becoming the best version of himself that whether she stays, leaves, or comes back, it doesn't shake his foundation. Attraction isn't about looks, money, or even charm. It's about presence. It's about how you carry yourself, the energy you radiate, and the level of control you have over your own life. Women don't fall for men because of what they say. They fall for the way a man moves through the world. And that movement, how you think, act, and carry yourself, comes down to one thing: mastery of self. Self-mastery is the highest form of power a man can possess. It means you are in control of your emotions, your actions, and your direction in life. It means you don't react to external circumstances, you dictate them. And when a man reaches this level, he becomes the type of person who naturally commands attention. Women are instinctively drawn to men who operate from a place of internal control. Not because they've read some dating guide or because they're playing a role, but because they are deeply grounded in who they are. When a man has mastery over himself, he exudes a level of certainty that makes others take notice. He's not swayed by rejection. He's not emotionally dependent on validation. He walks into a room and people can feel that he is different. But let's break this down even further. What does self-mastery actually look like? 1, mastery over your emotions. Weak men are controlled by their emotions. They react impulsively, let rejection shake their confidence, and allow external events to dictate their mood. A man who has mastered himself, however, is in full control of his emotional state. He doesn't get overly excited when things go well, and he doesn't collapse when things fall apart. He moves through life with a steady, unwavering presence. When a woman rejects a man who lacks emotional control, he might lash out, beg for another chance, or try to manipulate the situation. But when a woman rejects a man who has mastered himself, he remains unbothered. He doesn't take it personally because his sense of worth isn't tied to her response. That unshakable confidence is what separates the men who beg from the men who attract. 2, mastery over your purpose. A man without purpose is lost. He wanders through life looking for validation, seeking relationships to fill the emptiness inside him. And women can sense this lack of direction immediately. No matter how attractive or charming a man might be, if he lacks a deeper mission in life, his energy will always feel off. Men who have mastered themselves are completely different. They have a vision. They know where they're going, and they are fully committed to getting there. Their purpose isn't her. Their purpose is something bigger than any relationship, something that fuels them, drives them, and keeps them moving forward regardless of who is in their life. And here's what's interesting. When a man is deeply engaged in his mission, he becomes naturally attractive. He doesn't have to chase. He becomes the kind of man women want to be around because he embodies direction and certainty. A man who has built something for himself, who is completely immersed in his passion, is a man who stands out. 3, mastery over your energy. Energy is everything. You've probably noticed that certain men walk into a room and instantly command respect. They don't have to say much. People are just drawn to them. And this isn't about being loud or dominant. It's about the energy they carry. It's calm, confident, and grounded. This type of presence doesn't come from faking confidence. It comes from true self-assurance built through years of personal growth, discipline, and self-respect. When a man reaches this level of mastery, his energy becomes magnetic. He doesn't seek validation, he doesn't shake, and he doesn't let rejection shake him. He simply exists in his full power, and that alone is enough to draw people in. 4, mastery over your desires. A man who is controlled by his desires is weak. If he is easily swayed by lust, constantly chasing women, or unable to resist instant gratification, he lacks true self-mastery, and women can sense this lack of control. A man who has mastered himself, on the other hand, does not chase. He is selective. He doesn't settle for just any attention because he values himself too much to waste time on meaningless pursuits. He understands that true attraction isn't about accumulating as many women as possible. It's about being so deeply rooted in his own value that only the highest quality people enter his life. Why women come back when you master yourself now. Let's connect this to why women often return after rejecting a man. When she first met you, maybe you weren't fully in control of yourself. Maybe you were seeking validation, lacked a sense of direction, or had an energy that felt uncertain. And so she walked away, but then something changed. You started focusing on your own growth. You became disciplined. You built something for yourself. You stopped chasing and started leading. And whether she sees you in person, hears about you through others, or simply feels a shift in your energy, she notices the difference. She may not understand why, but suddenly she's intrigued. She remembers rejecting you, but now you feel different, more confident, more grounded, more in control. And that shift sparks curiosity. Because deep down, women are drawn to men who are evolving, men who are not stagnant, who are constantly improving, who are in full command of their life. When you master yourself, you don't just become attractive, you become unforgettable.